Hey guys, it's Coach Gaglione here, and it's another edition of our GAGS Goals Update. So what's cool about this video is that we're kind of wrapping up kind of my quote-unquote off-season period, and I'm officially starting kind of meet preparation for my next competition, which will be I think November 9th, which will be the RPS Autumn Apocalypse, staying local for the next one, which will be a nice change of pace because I've been traveling a lot for my last couple of competitions, whether it be on a plane or driving. If this is your first time watching, I'm Coach Gaglione. I'm the owner of Gaglione Strength. I've been involved with strength training, coaching, and powerlifting for over 13 years. And this is kind of chronicling my weight loss journey in my attempt to still be strong, lean, and healthy, and everything in between. I've been as heavy as 340 pounds. And at the time of this taping, I've been kind of my weight's been kind of fluctuating between like 225 and 230. And this is the road to 198 series. So my goal is to do my next competition at 198 pounds and then go from there. It's actually the weight class I started my powerlifting journey when I was just 18 years of age. So I want to kind of recap the last week of training and also kind of talk about some goals and what I'm going to be doing in the future. So one of the things I think is, this maybe not apply to everyone, but just to give a little insight on my methodology, my thought process behind some of this stuff. So right now I'm primarily focused on equipped lifting, and this is for a number of reasons, but I enjoy equipped lifting, and when I kind of got into the sport of powerlifting, like I said, over 13 years ago, watching a lot of the old West Side VHS tapes. If you guys, the younger people watching may not even know what a VHS is, looking at like Chuck Vogapol and a lot of these guys. The WPO at the Arnold was a big thing. So all these things were kind of happening, and multiply lifting was like the form of lifting for the highest levels of competition. So that's kind of like what I always aspired to be. I've done the raw lifting as well, and I started out raw, and I've also, I've done, some raw competitions myself, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I stuck with equipped lifting. It just was something that was kind of got me into the sport, and I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the technique part of it. I enjoy the complexity of it. But in my case right now, as I'm losing the weight, it's also kind of allowing me to kind of, scratch that kind of itch of still lifting heavy. So obviously I'm getting support, and it's allowing me to lift more weight. I could do that in a more protected state. So even though it's higher risk in terms of load on the spine and things like that, it's still, providing some joint protection and things like that. So I don't necessarily have to push myself as heavy raw as I'm in a calorie deficit and leaning out. So it's kind of allowing me to kind of, serve two masters the best I can. So that's kind of one of the reasons, just to provide some context of why equipped lifting has been still something I've been pursuing. What's cool now is with the equipment out there, especially with the squat suits, not so much with the bench shirts, really not at all with the bench shirts. The squat suits now, and you'll see when we kind of go over with the equipment I'm using. So the last two meets I did, I used a metal canvas, and it had 3 adjustable straps. So it did provide some adjustability. So even though I've been losing weight, I've still been able to use a lot of the same equipment, especially for the squat and the deadlift, which has been good. But that has posed some problems. So I want to kind of recap the training first, and I want to talk about what's to come. So at the end of this training cycle, and what I like to do basically before like a meet preparation. So a meet preparation could be, for us, it could be as little as like 8 to 10 weeks, but usually we prefer like a training cycle of like 12 to 16 weeks. And usually, like again, that last like 8 to 10 weeks is kind of like the hard and heavy stuff. But in general, like, any more than like 4 months out, we would consider more of like an off-season period. So, during the off-season, I did like a lot of beltless work. I did a lot of, raw training. I kind of got a lot of my raw lifts back up. I got my shoulder healthy. So that's almost back at 100%. And the other thing that that's important during an off-season period, if you're an equipped lifter, is just figuring out what equipment you're going to wear during the training cycle. One thing that you don't want to do, and it can happen from time to time, when you go into a training cycle for an equipped meet, I think it's really important that you kind of know like what you're going to wear, so that way you can train, not worried about like what shirt you're going to wear and things like that. So I think I have a pretty good selection of equipment that I'm going to wear. I have some other options just in case something doesn't work the day of the meet or something doesn't work later on, but I was able to establish, so I did some heavier, just straight weight singles. So if you've been following along, I did an equipped squat only meet at 242. Just weighed in as a light 242. I want to say I weighed in like, 228 or 226 or something like that. There was some challenges if you want to rewatch that video, but I was able to stand up with 800 pretty handily. So we'll talk about that. So that kind of checked the box off of wearing the Ultra Pro, which is we'll kind of go over our equipment in a second. So the next order of business was trying to figure out my bench shirt and my deadlift suit. So this past week I tried out a different. We'll kind of go over the bench first, I guess. I tried out a different bench shirt. I tried a Super Duper Phenom, and it was okay. The chest plate, it was working a little bit better than my red shirt that I have. This is a black one. The collar was tight. It was still pretty loose. I didn't get much. Didn't really need much. It wasn't much effort to get on. It worked okay. Again, my raw strength is down. I'm only, I guess I'm benching like 285 right now, which is pretty poor, but considering I wasn't able to bench, at my last competition in April when I hurt my left shoulder, I wasn't probably even able to bench like 230 raw on my meet day. So all things considering, looking at the silver lining, it's improving. Like I said, I'd like to get my raw bench back up over 315 at the very least. It'll make my life a lot easier getting back in the shirt. But anyway, so I tried out a new shirt, worked up to 365. To a 2 board. We had the Lord of the board holding the boards for me today, which was good. So this was this past Sunday. Then I worked up, 375. Then I worked up to 415 to a 1 board. Smooth touch there. Decent single, a little harder than I wanted. So then I elected to go to 435. So everything was okay. But lockout was a little squirrely. It wasn't I was touching fairly easy to the 435 to a half board. So it's essentially full range for me. So I elected from that workout, we don't have any footage of it, but I elected to stay from that information. I elected to stay with this Rage X, which I believe is a single ply shirt. You can see the chest plate is pretty tight on me. The sleeves are pretty, there's not really much to them, but this is what I'm going to be wearing. I was able to hit 455 in this to a half board, and it went pretty smooth. It was hard to get down. But as it should be. So 455 is not like an earth-shattering bench for me, but I only benched 415 in my last competition. So the fact that I only wore this shirt, twice, like in January I wasn't able to actually even fit into this. So this is going to probably be a good shirt for me. Even as I lose weight, I think I'll be able to still bench at least in the mid 400s and maybe the upper 400s. I'd like to bench 500 at 198. That'd be great. So as long as my raw strength goes up, I think this shirt will be the way to do it. So we're going to do the Rage X. So we're going to use that shirt. The other thing that we tested out, so as you can see, the week prior, we also deadlifted. So the first week in the Ultra Pro, I didn't wear any briefs. So these are my very old briefs. I actually used to wear these at super heavyweight. You can see that these were tailored. So you can go to like a shoe cobbler or like a tailor to get like gear altered. But you can see this is still very big on me. So the first, with the Ultra Pro with deadlifting, even when I was at the highest setting, the tightest setting, I didn't really feel like I was getting much out of it. And so I did another test run with the deadlift suit the week prior. It was actually the 4th of July, so we did some Independence Day deadlifts. I think I put on the suit around 455. Got the straps pretty tight. I want to say I did like 415, 455. Then I worked up to something I may want to say like 515 or 525. And then I went up to 475, which was like PR in that suit. Because the session prior without the briefs, I only lifted 555. So 575 went pretty smooth. So I elected to go to 605, and also that went really smooth. I made a little bit of a mistake. I made a little bit of a big jump, but I wanted to kind of see what I could handle. So then I went up to 645, which would have been like a gym PR for this body weight. Last cycle I did 635, and I deadlifted 630 at the meet. I was probably on pace for more, but like I said, after I hurt my shoulder, the deadlifts were a little bit funky after that. Everything went smooth. My hips just rose a little early. I noticed in the video that I was dropping my hips actually too low. So that tells me that either I'm going to need a tighter brief or I'm just going to tighten up the suit. So Ultra Pro worked pretty well for the deadlift, but I was getting down too easily. So I'm definitely going to have to tighten up the hip area a little bit more the next time. But I'm going to, for now, I'm going to wear the loose brief with the Ultra Pro. So that's going to be my deadlift suit of choice for the meet. And then the other thing that I tested out this week, I got a brand new pair of Jack briefs. So these are brand spanking new. These felt really good. It's a little bit hard for me to get it all the way kind of up in the crotch, especially on the back side. So I either got to do a little bit more booty exercise or I got to lose a little bit more in the gut, or a combination. These are a size 44. These take a little bit. I'm definitely going to have to use some baby powder, and I've been wearing like an Under Armour so I can slip on these a little bit easier. But this felt really good. I'm definitely getting, like I mentioned before, in my looser briefs, you can see the difference. These I was able to wear at super heavyweight. These are a size 56. So I actually squatted 850 in these, weighing 283 in the competition, and I also stood up with 880 with just these on, no suit, as a super heavyweight as well. That was like kind of when I was probably at my strongest like ever. That got 2 reds unfortunately, but I did stand up with it in the meet. But for what it's worth, I thought it was like a good lift, but it was a close call. So that's one of those, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. But as you can see the difference, like I said, in the tightness of it. So with the new, I tested out the new briefs. I wanted to see if the briefs would be a good combination, and I'm going to probably use these briefs in combination with the suit. Just for squatting. This is probably going to be a little bit too tight for deadlifting, at least for the time being. Maybe as I get lighter, it'll work as well. But I was able to hit 695 for a double, and usually I don't do more than singles with my equipment, but just because of the sake of time, and also like I mentioned before, I wanted to test out my bench shirt, the other bench shirt as well. It felt really good. I felt like I could have squatted 750 in just the briefs and wraps. So that's really good. When I add the suit, I feel like squat 800 should be no problem. I was able to get to a good depth in these. I want to say I worked up to 645 with no wraps, and then I wrapped up for 695, and I did a double with it, which is I think the most I've ever doubled, at least at this body weight for sure. So. Last cycle in briefs only, I think I did 700 for a single, so I did 695 for one. That's good progress there. So that's kind of covers that, and so that was kind of the training for last week. And like I mentioned before, we're going to be using the Ultra Pro. I'm going to use the Ultra Pro for both squats and deadlifts. A couple of things. So I think the big thing with this, I think for someone who's a beginner. Well, if someone's a beginner, we kind of talked about like maybe even not competing in a squat suit. But for someone that's a little bit newer to geared lifting, maybe more of an intermediate, this may not be like the best suit to start with, just because it's so adjustable. I like the metal canvas a lot, just because there's only 3 straps, so it's not as adjustable, but it's still adjustable. This you can get really specific. So unless you have like the same people, like kind of adjusting the straps for you, and you kind of know how you like it. The couple of things I do like about this that was different than the Leviathan, the regular canvas, these straps are a lot thinner, so it's a lot easier to feel like where the bar is in your back, and again, it's really adjustable. So I think the biggest thing is to make sure that the torso can be as tight as you want if you have trouble kind of folding over, and the hip, the tighter you get the hip, you can get more pop out of it. And the legs is kind of a comfort thing as well. Some people like it a little bit tighter. I like the leg a little bit looser. It's been working well. I haven't really tapped into the potential of this suit yet, but this is what I'm going to be wearing for the training cycle. So typically for me, I still like to do a lot of my training raw. So the way I'm going to be kind of breaking up my training is I'll probably do, on average, I'll do about 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and usually my bench and squat kind of follow a similar cycle. So when I'm squatting heavy, I'll be benching heavy, and then usually if I'm squatting heavy and benching heavy that week, I'll usually be doing deadlift volume or speed deadlifts, and then when I'm kind of deadlifting heavy, I'll be doing more volume or speed work on squats and bench. So me personally, I do think that you can build some strength in the gear, but I'm a little bit more of like, I like kind of like the mentality of like the old school West Side lifters that where they still wanted to be really strong out of the equipment, and they did a lot of their max effort training, and they did a lot of their training still raw. And I think that's something that kind of newer equipped lifters can learn from. I do think that there's a skill component, and if you want to get the most carryover out of your equipment, getting in your shirt or getting in your suits frequently is going to be important. But I think from a nervous system standpoint, from a health standpoint, I like to spread things out a little bit. And that's kind of the general theme of our program anyway, even for raw lifting. So what I found in the past that works for me and works with a lot of our lifters is just like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So like 2 weeks raw and then 2 weeks in equipment. So and you'll kind of see like some of the pattern as we kind of go along with the vlog. Now for me, since I would, since I'm a little bit more experienced, I'm not like the best geared lifter ever by any means, not even close, but I have a general idea of technique, obviously. So I don't necessarily need to get in my gear every week, and also it's just kind of a hassle just for me personally. One of the things I like about equipped lifting is that you do need help, so it does force the team to kind of come together, but it can be a pain in the butt, and if I was in my equipment every week, I would really need to rely on a lot of people. So I tend to get in full equipment, so the stuff that I mentioned before, about once a month, which is really not a lot, but it's enough for me just to keep the practice. And usually I do some sort of linear progression where I start off with doing like last warm-ups and opening weights, and then eventually go up to second attempts and third attempts, and then also utilizing reverse bands like with less help. So I might be doing third attempts with like a light band initially, and then eventually it works down to like a monster mini or a mini. One of the things that actually I was talking about with Chris Delafave, because I feel like I'm not getting, since I don't have this big a belly anymore, doing a little bit less board work and a little bit more full range work on bench. So I might consider even like, putting the bench under the mono or something so I can kind of do some reverse band bench work again, because that's something that I felt was beneficial in the past. We just don't really have the setup to kind of do it. Another thing, so like I mentioned before, I probably only plan on getting in my full equipment only once per month. Now, as the meet gets closer, that might change if I feel like I need more practice in it, but in general, it'd be 1 to 2 times a month at most. But on the weeks that I'm supposed to be going equipped, but I don't want to get in full equipment, there's going to be some other tools that I like to share with you guys. So in the past, I was doing a lot of slingshot work, and I will continue to use the slingshot, especially for my raw stuff and for raw lifters. But one of the things that I kind of got tuned in on from Bench and Benny is this Bench Freak band. You could purchase one, I guess, on benchfreak.com. And for most people, just using the singular layer material is going to be good, but this is going to have more of a feel of a bench shirt, and it's going to help you practice your bench groove without. So you can see this is like, you kind of mimic a chest plate. It's really pulling my arms together. So I really need to drive out with my lats here, and it's going to help me get a lower touch point and teach me to spread the material. Whereas a slingshot, you don't need nearly as much upper back activation, and you could basically have like more of a raw groove in the slingshot, which I think is beneficial for the raw lifter. But I think for an equipped lifter, I really like this Bench Freak band. I think this would be a good tool in addition to a slingshot when you're looking for more help, or if you're looking to really get practice in your shirt. So this will not give you quite as much. Obviously, if you use the other layers of it, it gets more and more aggressive. I think for most people, just probably using the single layer is going to be a good. Otherwise, I think you're probably better off just getting into your shirt at that point. It's also a good way to warm up into your shirt, or if you want to get more back down volume and you want to get out of your shirt, it's a good idea. The other thing I've talked about in the past as well, we also have, we talked about the Squat Buddy. So the Squat Buddy is also good for back down volume, but these are actually from Spud. These are the Gateway Briefs. So the Gateway Briefs I like, again, if I don't want to get in full equipment, but I want to practice squatting a little bit in a wider stance, or maybe I'm doing some box squats or some more volume, some triples, some doubles and stuff in gear. So these Gateway Briefs are not going to give you too much, but it's going to allow you, it's going to protect your hips and allow you to go a little bit wider. So I really like these to work into kind of on my equipped day if I don't want to get in full equipment. And on a day where I am wearing equipment, I want to get some more back down volume, I might take the suit off and then like wear a Squat Buddy which I forgot to bring over here, but we've had some videos on that too, and we'll kind of show you guys that. So the gateway briefs really don't provide much support for the deadlift, but it will allow you to get a little bit wider. So the gateway briefs, if I was just I could wear these like a whole session and just kind of keep these on. These are a little bit more flexible than like something like the jack briefs. So this is a squat buddy. So what I like about this is that you can kind of just take this on and off in between sets very quickly. So if I was doing some sumo deadlifts or box squats as back down volume after my full equipment, I can just slip this on very easily and put this under my butt. And this is going to allow me to kind of, again, mimic the material and push out. So similar to like the bench freak band or a slingshot, but it'd be like a slingshot for your lower body lifts. So that's kind of the tools in my toolbox. I think it's important to do some kind of testing in your gear before you start a training cycle so you kind of know what you're doing. So I kind of know what I'm doing. I have all my tools and I have my training cycle planned out. So I'm very excited to share this journey with you guys. So thank you for following me along my journey to 198. If you want to support the program, please check out the links below. If you like the video, please subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.